Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Longhorn Livestream right here on Texas Football. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined by Rod Babers and CJ Vogel. Tonight's show brought to you by our newest sponsor, Joe Brown, your veteran mortgage professional. I want to thank him for sponsoring. And guys, let's jump right into it. There's been some movement in recruiting, CJ. I know you've been posting updates on the board all day on TexasFootball.com. What's the latest there?
Yeah, two big prospects on the offensive side of the ball are locked in for June 21st through 23rd at Texas. The first will be Jasper tight end Quinn Armstrong, a really talented prospect. We know Texas wants to take a second tight end in this class to pair with Emory Winston right now. The complementary aspects of Emory Winston and Quinn Armstrong really pair off well with one another. He will be joining the big group of Texas Longhorns Texas Longhorn prospects officially visiting June 21st through 23rd. The other one is Khalil Lockett, the highly rated wide receiver out of Saxe. He is a very talented prospect who Texas is hopeful to get back on the campus multiple times, and they will be. The first will be April 6th, and then again for his official visit, June 21st through 23rd. That's a kid that Texas wanted to get on campus for their junior day, January 20th. We're unable to, and you saw Chris Jackson and Steve Sarkisian make the trip out to Saxe the last week or so of the contact period in February to get FaceTime with Khalil Lockett because he's a very special prospect. He also has official visits to USC and I believe Tennessee scheduled at the moment right now. And then heading into the 2026 class, because this is a big one, quite literally, large human. And let's see if I can get this name right. Otherwise, he might just be Toa. Katoa. I've been practicing this name, and I think I just missed it. I missed it again, but he's a 2026 offensive lineman from Euless Trinity. Hear me out here. 6'5", 385 pounds. Very big prospect. But you turn on the tape, you can see the movement there. He plays guard at Euless Trinity right now, and he is used to pull very often. We posted a few of his clips earlier this morning on Texas Football, and my goodness, I was amazed at how quickly he was able to get from one sideline to sideline when he was in space. Really talented prospect, and our Jerry Hamilton even put it up on the board. Right now in the 2026 class, you can look at two offensive linemen that Kyle Flood is really starting to target right now, and it's Katoa at Euless Trinity, who I just mentioned, and John Turntine at North Crowley, who we've been beating the drum with, since he visited in January for the junior day, and even before that as well. He's going to be a five-star, all-around top prospect in the state of Texas.
Wow. I got to see the film on this kid. 380. You say 385?
He's a must-watch. It's a must-watch.
Dude, I'm going to have to check that out.
There's another one, Stephon Shivers, who Texas offered yesterday, defensive lineman. Jerry also posted his clip this morning when we reported his visit to Texas earlier this week. 315 pounds, I want to say, Rod, running a 70-yard fullback dive up the middle for a touchdown. It is incredibly impressive. I'm not sure if we can get that pulled up in time, Blake.
We're going to run now. Keep talking, DJ.
He is a special prospect. Yeah. So, Rod, when you talk about the size of the big humans, and the SEC, kind of bulk that you need in the trenches there. Here's the perfect combination of two prospects. Again, Kenny Baker is going out and finding some really talented prospects right here. Look, I missed, 6'3", 355. But look at this.
Damn, look how he's moving too. I mean, he's fluid. It's crazy. That is wild to see 330 burning off on boards like that.
Scoring, man, finding pay dirt. So
wow.
Really impressive stuff. He is a really impressive prospect that Texas offered last night. Texas offered 4 prospects on the defensive line, 2 out of Georgia, or 2 out of Florida, another out of Tennessee, and then Chase Sims out of Randall High School in Richmond, Texas, who Jerry also put up some notes earlier today on Texas football. So a lot going on Texas football right now, a lot going on recruiting. And, man, that defensive line room, as we've talked about, going into the spring is going to be a point of emphasis all over the calendar for the Longhorns this year.
Hey, CJ, is Kenny Baker recruiting nationally more than Bo Davis did, or is it just about the same, your opinion?
He's starting to hit the SEC territory pretty heavily. In the last week or two, we've seen probably 7 or 8 offers extended kids in Florida, Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia. I think Bo Davis did a good job in the Louisianas, Mississippi. You saw him get in there and really get to work as well. Right now, I think there's a bigger focus in Georgia and Florida comparative to what we saw with Bo Davis. Right now, I think for Kenny Baker and the number of offers that we're seeing extended, right now it's just about getting up to speed and saying, hey, I'm now the coach at Texas. I need to know your name, vice versa. Let's see if we can get you down to campus. That's going to be interesting because he has made some inroads already. Malik Autry, the defensive lineman committed to Auburn at the moment, says he wants to get to Texas. And this is a kid who's been committed to Auburn for over a year now. So it will be interesting to see just where he's able to kind of fit in and create instant relationships and see if that pays off with unofficials and then eventual official visits in the summer. See if Texas can get into that SEC territory and really start carving out a role.
Yeah, good stuff.
All right, guys, we got a super chat for you, Rod.
Hey,
UT boy. Thank you,
what's
UT
up, baby?
boy.
Hey,
He says, Rod B, DBU alumni,
Hey.
diapers, hook 'em.
yes. Hey, trust me, man. That diaper fund is serious, man. You go through them. Who knew? I mean, that's that diaper fund needs that $20. So thank you, UT boy. I appreciate that, man. No doubt. We appreciate the love. No question. DBU. Yeah, man. DBU representing. Actually, today I was thinking about another member of DBU. I mean, Quandre Diggs, who got cut. That was wild to me. I thought Quandre would be the one they keep. I think Jamal Adams made more sense to cut. He's the third highest paid safety in the NFL. He's more of a linebacker. Let's be honest. He's a glorified linebacker. I mean, he's a coverage liability. I think everybody knows that about Jamal Adams. But my man Quandre, got 15 interceptions in the last 4 seasons he played. He's a ball hawk. I can play safety. He can play nickel for you. That's what he played when he first got in the league. So I was a little surprised, but it just shows you that Mike McDonald wants to come in there, bringing his own guys with his own system. Todd, I know what you're talking about. You might end up in Dallas. Dallas don't necessarily need safeties, though. Isn't J-Ron Curse the only safety that's like a free agent for them? They still got Malik Hooker. Donovan Wilson is fantastic for them. They're moving. I forget the guy they moved to, Marquise Bell. I think remember they had him like as a hybrid. They're moving him back to safety. Philly's interesting. Listen, Houston could use him. Houston, I know I'm a little biased here, and he's from H-Town. May get him a little bit of a hometown discount, but Houston could use some more depth at the safety position. Diaper fund is a necessity. Oh, yeah. I had no idea that you go through them that fast. That blew my mind. I mean, I ain't going to give you the numbers, but trust me, you don't want to know. But, yeah, I appreciate the diaper money, man. It means a lot.
Well, lots of NFL talk in the chat, guys, draft talk. And, CJ, you actually had a pretty interesting article today on TexasFootball.com titled Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm going to let you explain that to everybody, what rabbit hole you went down, and we'll discuss it.
Yeah, no, I find myself going through these rabbit holes every now and then. I was telling Rob last night, I just, take my carrots, my bag of goods and go sit next to Bugs Bunny for a few hours whenever I find interesting tidbits and stats to pursue. But last night with a few mock drafts, Lance Zierlein and Dane Brugler, the updated, mock draft experts that you see with the post-combine looks at what the first round will look like. 3 Longhorns were in them, and it was Byron Murphy, A.D. Mitchell, and Xavier Worthy. That would be Texas's first 3 first-round overall picks in an NFL draft since 1980. And it blew my mind that it had taken that long in between 1980 and now to get Texas to a draft in which there were 3 first-round picks in a single draft. So I went through every Power 5 team, and I really just wanted to get an understanding of, all right, how often is this? Is it really just the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Ohio States? Who in between really produces that top-end tier talent when it comes to the NFL draft? And my goodness, there was a lot of interesting tidbits that I came away with. Ohio State and Alabama, number 1 and number 2 in terms of producing very heavy first-round draft picks in the same draft there.
Yeah.
Ohio State had 12, Alabama had 11. Georgia, surprisingly, has only done it 3 times, and 2 of them were in the last 2 drafts. So you talk about finding the right coach, the right system, and the right developmental staff. That's what Kirby Smart has right now, because in the last 2 years, he's done it more than Georgia's entire football history. Right now, and I'm not saying this is going to be the consistent thing that you see with Sarkisian, but with what we've seen so far, you can absolutely anticipate seeing Texas very heavily involved in the top half of the draft. So it was interesting. I really had some key takeaways there. Schools like Oregon, Arkansas, SMU never had 3 first-round picks in a single draft. It was surprising. Notre Dame's not done it since 1994. But what was interesting was Miami and Florida State in the 2000, 2008 range. I mean, that was all they were doing. Those Miami teams produced 19 first-round picks in 4 years. You talk about that 01, 02 up to 2004 team, an incredible amount of talent. And again, you start looking at the portal and how Texas can pick apart, go out and add, 4, 5, 6 pieces per year and add them to this roster right now. It's it's not outrageous to think that Texas could go on a on a run right now in which, you look at, hey, 10 first-round picks over the next 4 years. You're going to have maybe 4 right now. If you continue this trend, it could be on a pretty interesting climb, and that's only going to help the program, only going to help in recruiting, and yourself, if you're Steve Sarkisian going forward, it's going to make life very interesting for you.
Yeah, if you're in Texas, you're trying to develop that pipeline, right? Where it seems like year after year, the guys, even the guys who were backups and the guys who were second string guys, that once it's their chance, they become the perennial first round pick guys. I mean, and even when so I was a little surprised that in Mac Brown's heyday, during the apex of the program, when they were winning double digit games in 2000, they didn't have 3 first round picks, but you did say they had multiple first round picks in consecutive years. They were close to getting 3, and they didn't do it. They strung it up. They did have a consistent streak, though, of putting multiple first round picks in the league.
Yeah, and that's where it gets a bit misleading because, again, it's one of those things where you look at it and you say only one time. Texas can't ever do it. No, they did it, and they did it very well during that stretch. But, again, we're looking at a draft now where you could argue this could be Texas's most top-heavy draft in 20 years. Plus, if you go out and you fill in 10 names heard in the NFL draft. Now you're looking at not only a top-heavy draft, but a complete draft. Yeah. So kind of giving an idea of where this 2024 draft ends up collectively in the history of the Texas Longhorns going to the NFL. I really opened up a can of worms with this one. But, yeah, Texas, and from that early Mac Brown phase, they certainly put a lot of guys in the draft, and it happened very early in drafts. But like you said, Rod, consistency over years is the key here.
Yeah, and I guess Texas next year, the guys that project to be first-round picks, you do got Kelvin Banks. You do got Quinn Ewers. If Quinn has a great year, he's got a chance to be the first quarterback off the board. And then I wonder who that other potential first-round pick could be. Is it Isaiah Bond? Does somebody else step up? I've seen projected that Ethan Burke could take a huge leap. I wonder what that is in the future. Who's that next? I don't know, that next elite prospect for Texas after Quinn and Kelvin Banks, because those two guys seem to be right now pretty certain in terms of them being high-level draft picks, because they've been evaluated as such and rated as such, even coming out of high school. Somebody else now is going to kind of come out of nowhere and prove themselves to be worthy of that kind of high draft status.
That'll be interesting, especially as we head into the spring, too, because last year at this point, we were probably looking at guys like A.D. Mitchell and Byron Murphy to say, we expect them to take leaps. How large of a leap? I don't think anybody was expecting to hear them called in the teens by the next NFL draft. True. And so I think that is an interesting point, because you're going to be looking at guys like Isaiah Bond, Ethan Burke, even on the outside, maybe a Terrence Brooks. If he really has a special season, who knows? Could a 1-year special year for Cam Williams, kind of catapult him into draft conversations? You're not really sure, but it could happen because you just don't know just yet. So it's going to be really interesting to see, by the end of spring, in about a month and a half from now, we know these guys can play some ball, and they're going to be in serious conversations for NFL talk by the end of the year.
I like that.
And they want to know what y'all think about DJ Campbell next year, where you could see him if you could see him possibly leaving early, and where you could see him going.
Yeah. Hey, DJ had a good first year as a starter. I wouldn't say it was great. There's a lot of learning curves there. He did get picked on at times and stunts and blitz and twists and stuff like that. But that's just the growing pains of being a young offensive lineman thrown into the fire right away. You saw good moments late in the year, specifically against Texas Tech, Oklahoma State. Texas was cruising offensively, and he was a big reason for it. This offseason is going to be big for him. Again, another spring under his belt. Another year of development. Texas wants to get him down to about 325 in his weight. He's about 10 pounds over that right now, a little heavy. But again, The mobility, the athleticism is there. That's a kid that can run through just about anybody's face on the defensive side of the ball with where he is as an athlete and that mass. I mean, he's an impressive prospect. So another strong year where he kind of tweaks some of those big, kind of vision issues that he had at times. You could be looking at a draft pick for DJ Campbell. How high? That's up to him.
And we got a couple of other draft-related questions, guys. But before we get to those, I need to give a special thanks to our newest sponsor, Joe Brown. He's your veteran mortgage professional, and Joe has been providing mortgages in Austin and around Texas for more than 3 decades. In fact, he was the mortgage broker for our very own Bobby Burton's first ever home purchase more than 25 years ago. Joe's also a proud Navy veteran and a devout Longhorn fan. So if you're looking for a mortgage, give him a call. 512-663-4744. That's 512-663-4744. And we want to thank Joe for sponsoring tonight. Well, as I said, fellas, we do have another draft question or two, if I can find it here. And if I can find it. I don't know where it went. Oh, here we go. Okay. Joshua Bratton says something to think about. What team do y'all think will draft the first rounders?
Honestly, it's weird how many teams have Xavier Worthy going to the Chiefs now. And I know that was one of your favorites too, CJ, early on. It's freaky. I want to say that before the draft, Mel Kiper had him going to, before the combine, before the combine, Mel Kiper had him going in his latest mock draft to the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Lance Zierlein had him going to the Chiefs as well. If I'm not mistaken, as well. Yes, and if I'm not mistaken, Jordan Reed over at ESPN also had him going to the Chiefs, if I'm not mistaken. But it's multiple respected draft analysts who have put out mock drafts prior to the combine and post-combine that have Xavier Worthy going to the Chiefs. It does feel like it's a natural fit just because they need a wide receiver. So them drafting a wide receiver is not out of the realm in the first round. And we know Andy Reid doesn't mind small-ish, right, speedy receivers. Deshaun Jackson, if you go look at the lightest wide receivers at the NFL Combine in its history, and I believe Xavier Worthy measured at the 9th lightest receiver at the Combine since 2000. We're talking about body mass index. The only one of those guys to get 1,000 yards is actually Deshaun Jackson. If you look at the top 50 lightest wide receivers in the Combine, actually the only one to have 1,000 yards is Deshaun Jackson. That guy was able to be weaponized by Andy Reid. He found a way to weaponize that kind of speed with vertical shots down the field. He also was a damn good return man too, which X-Man is. Andy Reid would be the perfect scenario for X-Man in terms of the compatibility with the offense. And playing with a future GOAT like Patrick Mahomes can start your career off on the right path. So that's an easy one. Byron Murphy, I've seen mocked to the Las Vegas Raiders a lot. Not sure that I've seen multiple mock drafts with him going to the Raiders. Not sure if there's some infatuation there. Byron Murphy could end up going to damn near anywhere just because he could end up being the first defensive player taken off the board. I don't think he's going to drop past 15, 16. The way it looks right now, there's a chance he could be the top defensive player taken overall. AD Mitchell, that's probably the biggest wild card to me because we know Byron Murphy's going early. We know X-Man's going later in the first if, all the mocks are right. Where's AD Mitchell? Somewhere in between. And where does AD Mitchell end up? And he could end up in, like 4 or 5 different places that could use him. And the truth is, Matt Miller says he believes as many as 8 wide receivers could be taken in the first round. Guys, that would set an NFL record. But that's not. But the thing about LSU's supposed to have 2 of them. Texas might end up having 2 of them. It's just it's the deepest position in football. But this specific draft, it is a really talented wide receiver group, no question.
Yeah.
And then Trey Moore, we were talking about people up next season. I guess they could come out. And Kelly Hyden wants to know, how is Trey Moore looking this spring? I think he could be the most important defensive player if he can consistently pressure opposing quarterbacks.
It would be huge if he was the most consistent or one of those most important pieces for the Longhorns this year, because we've talked about it. He's a guy that just understands how to get to the quarterback. 22.5 sacks, 14.5 sacks last year, 22.5 over the last 2 years. You don't just learn that. That's something that's innate in his ability to get to the quarterback. He can really, really get after that and create some pressure. He's been tremendous so far. He's really had a business-like personality, head down, ready to work, and he's impressed. I think Texas knew that they were getting a player when he joined the program, but I'm not sure many expected him to be this quickly up to speed with the Texas program. He came in great shape. He had tremendous workouts prior to joining campus. Now he's really, really opening eyes and getting anticipations very high for what he's expected to do this spring. Because, again, that's going to be a crowded room now. You look at that defensive edge spot when it comes to Barron Sorrell, Ethan Burke, Colin Simmons coming in, Zena Umeozulu. What can you get out of Colton Vasek and Billy Walton as well? Not even mentioning Justice Finkley and Jamon Tapp. That is a loaded room full of talent. Who rises to the top right now? My bet is we're going to hear a lot about Trey Moore.
I like that.
Guys, well, CJ, you had an article today, or well, not an article. You and Jerry talked about spring game position battles, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. Let's talk about the spring game for just a minute because we have a couple of questions. Gus Fleener says, "I've never been to a spring game. I'm seriously considering coming to Austin for this one. I suspect it will be the biggest turnout ever. What are y'all's expectations? What should my expectations be?"
Ooh, that is good. Because usually for the spring game, we're not talking about breaking out, new schemes and tweaking the X's and O's. You're just talking about competition. You want guys going at it. Everything's pretty vanilla in the spring. You want guys just getting familiarity with the system. And you're going to have so many new guys, especially on offense, right? All the new receivers. To me, I think that's what I want to see the most. I want to see the chemistry between Quinn and the receivers, because in spring, you can't touch the quarterback. Hell, with Quinn's status now, you probably can't breathe on Quinn the wrong way without Coach Sark dog cussing you to get away from his QB. So he's going to have a lot of room to work in the pocket. He'll have plenty of time in the pocket. I expect that passing game to look crisp. If it doesn't look crisp, that's going to worry me a little bit, because I'm going to worry about, did Quinn and the receivers put in the work in the offseason to get the chemistry, to get the timing down, to get the understanding of the routes, the sight adjustments, all those little nuances of the offense that make the passing game flow and to make the passing game really, really effective. And that's the biggest issue. I mean, these receivers coming in, they're all really productive. They're proven commodities, but they just haven't had any chemistry with Quinn. So I'm going to be really interested to see if Quinn can build that up through the offseason. And will the deep ball come back? Remember, Sark loves the deep ball. Sark told us stubbornly after his first 2 seasons, when Longhorn fans kept calling him out about the deep ball, like, "Hey, Sark, you might want to quit throwing them deep balls, man, because we're not that good at it, but you keep throwing them." And Sark said, "We're going to throw the deep ball because it's a big part of our offense. It's part of our identity. We're not going to stop throwing it. We're going to get better at it." Well, I think Sark, he walked that back a little bit. He didn't verbally say it, but we all watched the film, and Sark stopped throwing them deep balls, right? He stopped throwing them on first down, because he used to throw them on first down, and then they'd be incomplete. Then you get to second and long, and then you don't get enough yardage on second and long, and then you get to third and long, and it was putting them way behind the chains too often. And Sark stopped throwing those deep balls. At least he stopped throwing them on early downs on that first down, which he loved to do. I mean, 50% of Sark's deep balls when he first got here were on first down. He was just chunking them. And I think he got used to having Bijan and Rojo in the backfield. You get a 2nd and 10, you're like, give it to Bijan and Rojo. Bijan gets you 6 yards on 2nd down and 10. And you're like, all right, now we got 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3. We're pretty good. Well, when you didn't have that aspect, I think it really did bog down the offense a little bit, and it got out of rhythm. You didn't have the rhythm in the offense, and oftentimes led to Quinn having to be in a 3rd long situation, predictable passing situation, and then you can run those twists and stunts on the O-line. You can run simulated pressures, all the things that gave the offensive line trouble, and it would kind of force Texas out of their play action game, their RPO game, which Sark loves. Sark said that he loves the deceptive passing game, right, with play action and with the RPOs. But when you're in a predictable pass situation, most of the time you're going to straight drop back, and teams don't respect your RPO game or your play action pass. So I want to see if he's going to bring back the deep ball, because Quinn doesn't naturally have a really effective deep ball, but he's got a lot of speed out there. And I think maybe he wants to stretch the field a little bit more. And I wonder if that'll come back into the offense, or if he'll decide, no, we're good with threatening teams with the speed, taking the top off the defense, and we'll just complete all those underneath passes, which Quinn is he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. All right, at completing the short to intermediate routes. They were throwing guys last year. They got to the point they were throwing 18 to 20-yard curls. Y'all remember that? You remember this dude throwing 18 to 20 yard as a DB? I can tell you right now, that is unfair. Because I'm turning my hips at like 16 yards. I'm like, all right, we gone. It's going to be a go route. And then you're going to pull up on a curl route at 18 to 20-some yards, but you got a quarterback that can throw it accurately. All right. So I think that's part of Sark's mindset there. So I wanted the deep ball to come back, and I want to see the edges. That's another thing why CJ talked about. I want to see if the edges, I know they can't touch the quarterback, but can they collapse the pocket and get home? You haven't had natural edge rushers like a Colin Simmons, like a Trey Moore, and improved Ethan Burke, improved Barron Terrell. You haven't had the access to those type of assets on the edges until this season. I'm going to be really interested to see if they can collapse that pocket from the outside.
Yeah, Rod, to your point, it felt like when Sarkisian first got Quinn after that year where he was kind of juggling back from Hudson Card to Casey Thompson. Mm-hmm. You know, I think in his mind, he's like, all right, like whatever we call, he'll put it on the money without really, you know, the idea of a quarterback still has to learn and get up to speed with the game and everything that goes on with it. I think most fans that saw that perfect, you know, recruiting rating right next to him just anticipated that this would come naturally. The deep ball would be there as well as everything underneath might be a little bit more of a learning curve because, you know, there's more guys around where the ball is going. Oddly, it's the complete opposite. You know, anything inside that 15 to 20 range, you feel absolutely perfect. That is exactly where Quinn Ewers is going to put the ball every time where it needs to be. Whereas the ball deep down the field is kind of like, well, maybe it's a coin flip. Maybe we don't know. And it's interesting because going into the college football playoff, I went through the average, or I guess how often the percentage of throws per distance down the field. And Quinn was overwhelmingly the favorite behind the line of scrimmage. Almost 29% of his passes were screens or anything at the line of scrimmage. Only 11% were beyond 20 yards. And if you look at the other quarterbacks that were in that conversation, Jalen Milroe was right around 25%. Michael Penix was at 21%. Even J.J. McCarthy, who I think largely the college football media look at him as a game manager or a guy who doesn't necessarily need to be used as a guy to win the game, was around 15 to 16% when it came to throws beyond 20 yards down the field. Why was that when it came to Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell? Again, two guys that just ran 4.3 and 4.21. A lot of speed. Is that the reason that teams were sitting way back in coverage and they just couldn't get the ball down there? They didn't get the looks that they like? Could be. But I think it was Sarkisian resorting back to, hey, we know we can complete anything at 10 to 15 yards. Let's just take that and move down the field, because there were times at this year that we saw specifically at the end of the year, no one could stop this Texas offense. The only time Texas could really stop itself, and we saw it in the two losses, were when they stopped themselves. You know, when it was turnovers against Oklahoma, the two interceptions there and the fumble by Quinn, and against Washington, the two fumbles going into the red zone and coming out of their own red zone. So that was the biggest issue there. It wasn't the Texas offense. It wasn't Quinn Ewers. It was turnovers. So listen, if that's the approach Sarkisian takes again this year, I think you're going to see similar points and similar production across the board from the Texas new wide receivers and Quinn Ewers, simply because you can rely on Quinn to do every throw inside 20 yards.
Agreed. Yeah.
Well, guys, the Quinn discussion has spurred lots of questions here, so we're going to get to some of those. A super chat from William Neese. Thank you, William. He says, true or false? If Ewers can stay healthy, he's a Heisman finalist.
I think he is, if he can stay healthy. I think he can put up those kind of numbers. And that's something NFL scouts want to see, too, from Quinn. They want to see him make it through an entire football season. And that's not Quinn's. Well, it's not Quinn's fault, but it is his responsibility. It's like my mom used to always tell me, it ain't your fault, son, but it's your responsibility. Well, Quinn, it ain't your fault you keep getting hurt, but it is your responsibility to stay healthy. The number one ability is durability, right? Availability. So for him, and teams want to draft him potentially to be a franchise quarterback, right? He's got that kind of upside and potential, potentially even a 1-1 guy, first quarterback off the board. I think it is important for Quinn to make it through the entire season. I'm going to knock on wood here. But I think he's gotten so much better every year. And he's just taking those leaps and exponentially in improvement. I do think that, and considering that the time that he spent, not playing football, when he basically, left high school early and then sat at Ohio State and had kind of a redshirt year, I do think his trajectory right now is one that if he has that breakout year, he could see himself as a Heisman finalist. I really do believe that. But he's got to work on some things. He's got to work. One thing, the first thing I would say that Quinn's got to work on, I think Quinn looks at pressure. I think he's, instead of feeling the pressure, we talk about that with Michael Penix all the time. He had that natural, innate kind of feel in the pocket for where the pressure is, and he would just have these oh so subtle movements in the pocket to buy himself time, to create more space for himself. I do want to see that more from Quinn. I think there are times where Quinn actually sees the pressure. He looks right at the pressure instead of keeping his eyes downfield to get deeper through the progressions. He needs to feel that pressure, eyes downfield, and then be able to get deeper into the progressions and make that throw. Because when he sees that pressure, you guys have seen it. He has a tendency to sack himself, right? The self sacks where he actually ends up, kind of caving to the pressure. And there's also he scrambles, which is good. I like that he scrambles more. But I think teams want to see him get deeper into the progression instead of just taking the first piece of green grass that the defense is going to give to him. But I love that Quinn has improved every year. I don't think he has a lot of holes in his game. I think he's got a couple of holes in his game because nobody's perfect, but I also think that's stuff that he'll improve on in the offseason.
Yep, I'm right there with you. I think you're looking at a quarterback who has taken improvements, step in and step out every single year. You've seen that fine line of trajectory rising every year that Quinn's been here, and what he's done in college so far at Texas. Coming back for a third year is going to be big because now there's no more excuses. Now you're an upperclassman. Now you've been in college for 4 years and you're going to be in control. There were times last year that I think Quinn is going to watch the tape and say, yeah, that's on me. And I think now he's going to say the windows that he probably expected with his star-studded receivers that weren't necessarily there are going to be there now. And this is one of them that Blake's bringing up now. This was in the Houston game, and this is a touchdown. For someone that is anticipating the route, anticipating the win, that needs to be a touchdown this year if you're Quinn Ewers. That's the step now that you're expecting in year 3 for a guy that should be in the Heisman finalist conversation. This is a touchdown 9 times out of 10 with a good quarterback. The ball comes out right there. Cornerback is drifting backwards. If that ball is put where it is, where it needs to be, in which we anticipate Quinn making that throw more times than not, that is a touchdown. And I think that is something in year 2 last year that Quinn was just a little bit hesitant, which, hey, a sack is better than a turnover. I'll take it 9 times out of 10, 100%, like that. I will never complain about a non-interceptable pass. But this year, knowing where those windows are getting tighter and tighter going into the SEC and eventually the NFL, those drafts are going to be looking at that type of play right there to be a touchdown when it comes to Quinn Ewers and the progression that he takes in 2024.
It's good stuff.
All right, we got a question, another super chat here. This one from Thunder Pup. Thank you, Thunder Pup. He says that spring ball, what happened if Art beats Quinn? How does Sark handle the fallout, good or bad, from that?
Oh, man. Okay, I don't think that's going to happen. We can jump on the grassy knoll and go hypothetical here if it did that. Because what you want to avoid is a quarterback controversy. You don't want that. I always say a quarterback. I was on campus. I was in the locker room for the most infamous quarterback controversy competition history of Texas football. Major Applewhite and Chris Sims, both are friends of mine. My man Sims is one of my BFFs. So I was close to both of those guys as they were going through that. And I always say a quarterback controversy is in a competition is kind of like an election, right? You would like for that election to be decided. You'd like that quarterback competition essentially to resolve itself, right? He's that basically Quinn, based on his performance on the field, based on the way he practices, his leadership skills, which are big for Sark too, based on all those different things, all of those different variables that the locker room, which are his teammates, the coaching staff, that everybody within the organization, within the program, they believe that he won the job. They watched it. Coach don't even got a name of starter because everybody watched who asserted themselves and who elevated their play in practice. Like, oh, he's the guy. It's like when Matt Brown was asking about back in the day when he had the Jevin Sneed, Colt McCoy competition going on, and the players kept coming to coach and going, no, coach the guy. Coach the guy, coach. It's not Jevin Sneed. We're in the offseason working out. I'm telling you, that guy's leading the workouts. That guy's organizing them. he's balling, he's the guy. And then Max said he went to the spring, and then it was verified. Right, it came to fruition that Colt did indeed win that job. That's what you ultimately want. You'd want that to decide itself. You don't want to have to, as a coach, go, all right, I'll have to make a decision on who the starter is. And Quinn's going to be the starter. And I don't think there is a quarterback competition. I think Quinn's the starter, and I think Arch is the backup. But I will say this, Arch is going to play. Now we would like Quinn to stay healthy the entire time, but if you look at recent history at Texas since 1999, guys, I think 18 out of the last 25 years or so, the backup quarterback has played. Like, it's whether it be for production or whether because a guy got hurt or injured, they play more often times than not. I'm talking about relevant snaps in a game, not just going in for garbage time. We're talking about relevant snaps having to go win you a game in conference play, or go win you a crucial game and taking crucial snaps in a game. I hope that doesn't happen, but there's a really good chance that Arch is going to see time if we can look at recent history as any predictor of future events.
That's a good point. That's a crazy stat too. Hopefully, this is the year where you only see Arch in those games where he's handing off with 3 minutes left in the fourth or taking knees at the end of games. Listen, I'd like to see Arch just as much as the next guy, but with the way this schedule is, you should see Quinn playing most of these snaps in meaningful moments. And I think that's the hope.
Yep.
One last question, guys. I know you kind of touched on it earlier, but this one from Nathan. He says, is Quinn capable of throwing the deep ball, or does he lack the strength?
He's got the strength. The strength is not the issue.
Like the strength.
Yeah,
that's
strength. Sure. He can touch every blade of grass out there. Just can he do it accurately, right? When the deep ball, I think the accuracy comes into play, and the ball placement on the deep ball for him seems to be the issue. And maybe that's something in his game that he can improve on, or maybe that's just going to be one of the kind of negative data points in the evaluation of Quinn. I think he can get better at it, and who knows, different receivers with different chemistry, maybe it ends up sparking something that is more effective with the deep ball. But I know this is from Sark. Sark looked at that Washington offense, guys, and he probably thought to himself, damn, I would love to throw the ball deep like they do. Because what he wants to do is instill a fear in defenses. He wants them to operate from a basic kind of fear of the deep ball. He wants them to build their game plans afraid of the deep ball and what it could do. As a defensive back, I can tell you, the one thing that will get me benched, the one thing that will get me dog cussed by my teammates and coaches is giving up that easy deep ball, that easy deep explosive play, or that easy deep touchdown. That's when everybody on the defense feels like I let them down. And all defensive backs, even if you just throw the deep ball, you didn't have to complete it. It does plant the seed of fear in the DB's mind. I, as a defensive back, if you keep throwing it deep on me, I'm probably going to back up a step or two, just a little bit. Or if I'm playing bump and run coverage, I'm probably going to get my hips turned a whole lot quicker if y'all just keep throwing that deep ball on me. It's just natural. It's a psychological kind of ploy for him throwing the deep ball. So I think he wants to instill that sense of fear in defenses, and he does that with the speed that he has on the outside, because you're scared as hell those guys going to run right by you, but also that he will throw it deep early and often, and that you need to back your safeties up out of respect for that, back your corners up out of respect for that, and that means you can't stack the box. And if you can't do that, that means it's going to make the running game a whole lot easier. So Sark says his offense is an RPO-based offense that'll take the run game if you give it to him. And that's a big reason why Jonathan Brooks had a great year and why he's always bragged about having 1,000-yard backs. It's because he's always had speed on the outside, and he's always been a big advocate of throwing the ball deep. I think at Texas, he had to back up off it a little bit. And honestly, I think for Sark, I think that was a humbling moment. I think for him, he didn't want to do that. I think it showed us that as a coach, he can evolve, and that as a coach, you will see him make the necessary adjustments. Football is a game just like life, right? Where you have to make a decision deciding between what you want to be and what you need to be. Sometimes what you want to be, it ain't what you need to be in order to survive. And I think Sark wanted to be a deep ball offense and kept chunking it deep and cunking it deep, but Texas wasn't good at that. So I think he resorted to what he needed to be, which was a short intermediate passing game with the run game, and then taking calculated deep shots and not just an abundance of them, not trying to overwhelm your opponent with those deep shots. But I do think he wants to be that. That's the reason he's recruiting all that speed and these big arm quarterbacks. He would love to be a deep ball offense. I just don't think right now it's compatible with the talent that he has, even though he's got a lot of talent.
Yeah, Rod, I think that's a good point. What's funny is you look at maybe the four of the most recognizable, memorable plays from last year. What were they?
Deep ball.
Deep balls. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But if you can start hitting those with consistency, no longer are they an outlier, and no longer are you looking at them like, holy cow, I can't believe that just happened. We haven't seen that too often this year. Mm-hmm. The minute you start looking at them with regularity, that shine and luster goes away, and it's just, they just connected on a big play. We knew that was going to happen. Until that happens, it's going to be continued to look at a little bit like that. Those 4 plays I was mentioning really were the 2 touchdowns against Alabama, the A.D. Mitchell catch against TCU. And I was going to go back to Houston with the perfectly placed pass to Xavier Worthy on the near sideline where it was just right in the basket. But I did find up some notes from the Sarkisian's offense from 2019 to 2022. I haven't looked at this year's numbers. That might be my next rabbit hole to dive down and dig up some numbers there. But the percent of passes attempted over 20 yards in Sarkisian's offenses from 2019 to 2022. So this ranges from Mac Jones, Tua, and then with Casey, Hudson, and Quinn for his first year. 15% in 2019, 13%, 16% in 2021, to 20.5% in 2022, first year with Quinn Ewers. So if you don't think that he sat back and said, finally, I've got a quarterback that's doing it everywhere, that's exactly what it was. And here's even more evidence of it. This is the average distance of target in those same years. 2019 was Tua. Tua, again, tremendous year. You looked at the numbers that they put up, 8.7. All right. Mac Jones comes in the year after 2020, 8.8. Very consistent. Nothing really changed in that Alabama offense from what they were doing. Casey Thompson comes in, 9.8. Okay, now they're starting to throw it a little bit deeper. And then Quinn Ewers comes in. And I think Sarkisian looked at it and said, you know what? Throw everything off, and there's no limitations here because we're hucking this thing 11.5 yards per attempt entire year. So that's exactly your conversation that you were talking about earlier, Rod. Is, I think Sark looked at it a little bit and was like, you know what? This isn't going to work right now for Quinn. Will it eventually? Will it this year? Probably a little bit more than what we saw in year 1. But to your point, in 2023, I think we saw that underneath pass just a little bit more because we knew there was a little bit more of a learning curve. But, hey, this is the year where I'm really – whoever asked the question about seeing Quinn in New York for the Heisman ceremony, I'm telling you right now, if there's a line for him to even get close, get the invitation to go out to New York, throw a couple dollars on it. I think he'll be there.
Nice. I like that.
He'll be there.
I like it.
All right, Joe, we've talked the passing game pretty much in depth, but Rick wants to talk about pass protection. The only issue on offense is pass protection at right guard and right tackle, says Rick. Can Campbell improve in pass pro, and how will Cam Williams do in pass pro?
Yeah. I'll start with this one because I'm very passionate about this offensive line. Big human strikes me to my core, Rod. If you can't tell, deep down I am one. But you just don't know. But listen, Cam Williams is one of the best high school prospects I've seen from a pure pass protection standpoint of anybody that I've covered. I'd say him and Kelvin Banks are right there, 1A, 1B. Cam Williams, the way that he uses his body and length to really fend off defenders is the most impressive thing. Add in the fact that he doesn't ever lunge and he never gets out of balance with how big he is. Everything looks natural and fluid. He's a perfect fit going into the SEC for these big time edge rushers that you'll see. Again, 6'6", 6'7", 350, 360 pounds, whatever he is. He is a tremendous pass protector, and I think Texas fans are really going to see that. He had a great game. He had a clear sheet aside from 3 pre-snap penalties against the top 25 defense in his first and only start this year. He is a very good defender, or I guess pass protector when it comes to the pass sets. He's going to be very, very impressive. For Texas to have both of those guys bookending your offensive line, if you're Quinn Ewers, you have to be looking around saying, yeah, thank God for this pancake factory and keeping these guys around campus. Going inside to DJ Campbell, this is going to be the same development line that we've seen from Quinn Ewers. Guys get better the longer that they're in college, unless your name is Brock Purdy. For whatever reason, that's just the longer that you're able to get snaps and development and stay in this, that similar system. Listen, DJ Campbell, the struggles that we saw this past year, they're going to be much more minute, I would say, than what we'll see in 2024, and especially in the spring. You won't hear about the twists. You won't hear about any of the stunts that are, kind of tripping them up a little bit. Mm-hmm. DJ Campbell will be improved, and I think Cam Williams is looking at what could be an all-conference year right away.
Yep, I agree with you. I mean, this should be a strength, right? 4 to 5 starters return. In terms of depth on the offensive line, I mean, you're one of the top 5 deepest O-lines in terms of talent in the country from that recruiting class, that old offensive line haul you had a few years ago with the Pancake Factory. You haven't had a lot of offensive line transfer. I think the belief was that, man, Texas might have some transfers because only, they brought back so many guys from last season, brought back the entire offensive line, and now you're bringing back 4 or 5 guys. But Kyle Flood's done a great job of keeping these guys focused, keeping these guys obviously invested in what's going on. So they haven't had a lot of departures, which means they are stacked with talent on that offensive line. And you bring back 4 to 5. So I'm with you. That should be a strength this year. If it's not a strength, that would blow my mind. I'd be very disappointed if the offensive line isn't one of the best in the country. Meaning they should be. And they were weren't they in the running for the Joe Moore Award this year?
They were semifinalists.
Yeah. I remember Christian Jones saying that was their goal as an offensive line prior to season 1 to win the Joe Moore Award, which Washington won, by the way. That's the best offensive line in the country. They should be a finalist. I don't know how many finalists they have for the Joe Moore Award. They should be a finalist this year for the Joe Moore Award. If they're not, I think just like Quinn not going to New York for the Heisman, I'll be a little disappointed. It's like we all thought Bijan would be a Heisman finalist too. Should have. Right? Bijan should have been a Heisman finalist. Why wasn't Bijan a Heisman finalist? Well, Texas didn't win enough games that year. So I think that was kind of what it was. That shouldn't be the issue this year. Texas should win a lot of games this year, be in championship contention. And we all know with team success comes individual success. I expect that O-line to be one of the best in the country. I expect Quinn to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. You couldn't ask for a better formula on offense than returning that kind of the core of your offense, the O-line and the quarterback. So I don't think pass protection should be an issue. By the way, the analytical realm, the analytical era has pretty much come up with a lot of proof that quarterbacks are responsible for like half the sacks. Like 50% of sacks, it's just the quarterback making the wrong decision, the quarterback moving wrong in the pocket, not understanding the protections, those self-sacks that you always talk about, CJ, staring at pressure. So half the time, the guys that get sacked, it's the QB doing a little too much or not getting rid of the ball on time, things of that nature. So Quinn, he also has a lot of responsibility in pass protection, not for him setting the protections, but in him as a quarterback, getting the ball out on time, being able to maneuver in the pocket. Don't stare at the pressure. All right. Don't look at it, feel the pressure and being able to manipulate the pocket to be able to find room to find receivers down the field.
Yeah, Blake, I actually got a question for you, and it comes from Daniel. I saw we got it started here, but what is the best Texas offensive line that you've seen? And on paper, we haven't seen them in pads, especially as a unit yet. But what would need to happen in your eyes for this unit to be considered the best Texas has ever had?
Wow.
I don't know if I would say the best they've ever had because I kind of go back to like Blaylock in the 05. Yeah, Rod's with me, thank God. I was like, maybe I'm crazy. No, but I mean that's kind of what I go back to. I mean that
definitely
line was just so, and I know it's like recency bias and all that stuff, and that was going on 19 years now. Geez, that'll make you feel old, but. Man, I think that was probably the best in my time anyway. Now, I'm sure if Bobby got on here, he can name off some crazy ones that we have no idea about. But in my time, it was that 05 one with Blaylock and those guys. I mean, even the 2 deep on that one was insane. And so, I don't know. I mean, Rod, and you may be able to back me up on this, but that line just had like a level of nastiness and meanness that I haven't seen since then. Would you agree?
Yeah, honestly, you know who epitomizes that? Casey Studdard. Casey Studdard was a nasty, just grimy offensive lineman. He always was looking for a fight. And he always used to, he really would describe football. This is the way Casey Studdard described it to me. He said, man, football is just a 60-minute fight. He said, I'm blessed that I get to fight for 60 minutes. And he looks forward to it. That kind of, that type of physicality. And I think that he has a great offensive line personality, right? Larger than life, definitely. Mean, nasty, loyal, like a pit bull, man, out there. And I remember telling me stories about that 2005 O-line and how confident they were. I would say borderline arrogant and cocky, but they were. They would tell the opposing team at times what was coming. They tell them, like, hey, man, we're about to run that read option here. The zone read's coming. We're going to run a dive right here. They were that good. They could tell the opponent what they were doing. They couldn't stop it. Texas had too much talent. There's nothing they could do about it. That is kind of what you want. Who on this O-line's got that kind of nasty? My CB, put that up again, my man CB. I want to see that because CB sees that Studdard would say that they would tell the defense, what they were playing running, and defense couldn't stop it. Exactly. He has told that story on air several times that that's how good that O-line was. Is this O-line that good? They can start yelling out the plays and where the ball's going and dare the defense to stop them and be that confident? Oh, I don't know, but I hope they are. They got the talent. They got the talent. Do they have the attitude, the character? Do they have those intangibles, right? Those immeasurables as an O-line. And by the way, do they work together well as a unit? There's no position group in football that has to work as a unit like the offensive line. Nobody. And they are considered one. And they have to have a hive mind. They got to be hive-minded, meaning all these guys got to be, even if they're not talking and communicating, they got to be seeing the same thing, thinking the same thing. That's how you pick up those twists and stunts. That's how you pick up those simulated pressures when teams are trying to confuse blocking schemes. Yeah, I agree, Shane. O-line's got to be nasty. And that 06 O-line, 05 O-line, that might have been the nastiest group of O-linemen that Texas had. Are they the best? You said you got to ask Bobby about that. But nasty? Yeah. Telling the defense what you about to run? Bro, come on, man. That's next level. That is next level.
The other thing was, Studdard said they'd get down to the goal line. They only ran 2 plays at the goal line for 2 years straight because they knew they were going to punch it in and no one could stop it. I mean, that was just like they were just so mean. That's really the only way to describe it.
Love it. Yeah. So I hope this group can reach that ceiling. I don't know how we would judge it, though. How do we judge it? Just the dominant run game and pass protection? Is that how we do it?
Yeah, I guess how, on run games, how far back are you pushing defensive linemen and pass protection? Is Quinn Ewers, touching a blade of grass every game? I don't know. It's a very objective debate there or whatever. But, hey, I'm all for the conversation. And for that to be a goal or even a conversation surrounding this offensive line to say what could possibly happen for them to get into the conversation, that means you've got a pretty talented group already. So, again, this group has come probably the furthest of any position group that we have seen since Sarkisian's arrival here at Texas. And for the second and third group below them to carry on that same kind of tenacity and approach there. I mean, the offensive line is going to be in great hands under Flood and Sarkisian for at least, as long as they're here, basically.
And I'm trying to find that depth chart now. Look at that. This old line real quick.
While we were talking.
I gotta look it up, man. That's a nasty group.
CJ, I teased earlier about you and Jerry talking position battles, and I do want to get to that real quick. Though I need to tell everybody out there one more time about our newest sponsor, Joe Brown with Southside Bank. And special thanks to Joe. He's your veteran mortgage professional. He's been providing mortgages in Austin and around Texas for more than 3 decades. In fact, he was the mortgage broker for our very own Bobby Burton's first ever home purchase more than 25 years ago. Joe's also a proud Navy veteran and a devout Longhorn fan. So if you're looking for a mortgage, give Joe a call today, 512-663-4744. Again, 512-663-4744. And thank you, Joe, for sponsoring the Longhorn Livestream tonight. All right, CJ, I'm going to ask you this question and let you kind of transition this into y'all's conversation earlier about the position battles. But AJJ Sports says, unpopular opinion, I think Neto wins the starting left guard spot this offseason. And then Todd Lacey also backs that up. I believe Hayden Conner is going to be beaten out. Neto's going to fight his way to left guard, in his opinion. Now, where did you and Jerry's convo go when it came to that spot and others?
Yeah, no, this is going to be a fun one because there have been talks behind the scenes of Hayden Conner bumping out to right tackle as well to give Cam Williams a little bit of a run for his money there. Listen, it's very tough to beat a guy who started 3 years for you on the offensive line. It's very tough to walk in and say, hey, your spot is no longer your spot. I'm here now. That's the task now for not only Neto Umeozulu, but hey, Cole Hudson. Let's not forget he started his freshman year on the Texas offensive line, in which he beat out a guy like DJ Campbell for that right guard spot. So if you can see a fully healthy Cole Hudson again in this offensive line, now you got 3 guys for a left guard spot that you can really, really find the best of the bunch. And who will that be right now? I have to imagine it's going to be Hayden Conner to begin spring football. But that's not to say he's going to be the guy that ends spring football there. And I'm going to be really interested to see if Neto Umeozulu can keep that light flicked on for the duration of those 15 spring practices. We know what it looks like every now and then when he's on the field and plays with that nasty switch. We got a little bit of taste of that when he was on the field last year. He doesn't look like a guy you want to mess with, that's for sure. But how often and consistent will he play at that level? I think Cole Hudson has that in him just a little bit more right now, but I think a little bit of that comes from Cole Hudson, ran a triple option in high school. He was a guy that they moved around their entire offensive line, depending on the scheme and the strength of the opposing defense. Say, hey, Cole, like, you're going to be running the ball. We're going to be running the ball 95% of our snaps. Go run over that guy. And that's really where his tenacity came in, and that's why he started as a freshman. So it'll be interesting because, again, you got 3 guys for that left guard spot. Again, I think it'll be Hayden Conner to start, and then who knows where it goes from there.
Yeah, I like that.
Hey, real quick, UT boy came through here. Blaylock out.
Oh, that is.
And Scott.
Yeah. I mean, so how many guys in NFL? We're talking about, man, that's what, 4 NFL guys? At all 4? Yeah, because Stutter played in the NFL, Jay Scott, Blaylock, Sinlon, also NFL.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's 4 out of 5 that's league guys. That's man, unless this group may send all their guys to the league. If they send all their guys to the league, I guess we'll be like, hey man, that group was just as good. I hope we're dealing with that comparison. But this group, I do think they got more upside. This group has more overall raw talent than that group. We're talking about, can they make up the nasty, the disparity, right? Can they have that kind of attitude? Can they be mean like Blake just talked about? This group, and you can tell when an offensive line is mean out there. You can tell, and you can literally tell it kind of right around when the whistle's about to blow. You can see guys getting tossed around, guys blocking to the echo of the whistle. You'll see a lot of that. I want to see some of that. I saw some of it last year. I'm not saying I didn't see it at all, but I'd like to see it with more consistency. To me, it's the attitude of the O-line more than anything.
Rod, do you remember Kelvin Banks' first possession, I think, against Oklahoma, his freshman year? He drove a defensive back, I think, into the pylon. After the whistle, it was like, all right, like, we know now who Kelvin Banks is. Like, we had a little glimpse of it, but to see that and see where his career has progressed since then, that's that little, flicker that you want to see of, like, I can drive you against your will 20 yards backward, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. I want to see that more from this group. That's going to be what helps set them over the edge. Playing, what's the saying? Playing with emotion, but not emotional.
Yep.
Let's see them really start to get that meanness, that tenacity, that feistiness, but not to the point where it hurts the team,
Agreed.
All right, so we're going to switch gears here for a minute because we have a super chat for you, Rod, from Justin Yarbrough. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Justin.
You had some time in the NFL. How much different is the off-the-field stuff, like off-season workouts and meetings and so on in the NFL versus college? Interesting question.
That is, you do a lot more individual stuff in the league. When you get together with your OTAs and you have mini camps and stuff like that, that's when you get with the team. But there's a lot more individual working out. Like you have your own. A lot of guys have their own trainer, or a lot of guys they go to a certain trainer, or they trust themselves to work out. I mean, they've been working out for a long time. So I think it's a lot more of that in college. Whether you are in these summer workouts that are organized by the strength and conditioning coach, or it's the organized workouts with the team 7-on-7 stuff, the team oriented workouts or team organized workouts, you're with the group a lot more. In the NFL, from my experience, we didn't work out with the group as much until they were actual team oriented, team organized workouts. I think in college, there's a lot more of working out on your own, but as a group, because you live together. Y'all together all the time. Y'all go to class together. Y'all go out together, right? You live in the dorms together. You walk or you drive to practice together. You're together so much that you end up working out together, even when it's not necessarily a team workout. You still work out together. We organized our 7-on-7 groups, and we would go lift weights as individuals, but we go in there together and have a time where the DBs could meet up and let's go do our drills and let's go work out and let's go watch some film. In the NFL, my experience, I'm sure there are some teams that have more camaraderie than the teams that I was on. And by the way, I wasn't on teams that long, right, to be able to kind of establish myself. But from what I could gather, the NFL is a lot more, individualized, self-starting workouts, right? You got to be intrinsically motivated to get out there. That's what the NFL is full of, right? High achievers who are self-starters, guys who are lazy. They don't really make in the league. So it's a lot more on you to make sure that you're in shape. In college, I think you got help because there's a lot of peer pressure, guys. Everybody's working out together, and there is this natural camaraderie because you're always around. It's just natural closeness because you're always around each other. In the NFL, that is not the case. Guys go home. They got families. Guys do their own thing. Yeah, sometimes we go kick it. Guys will go to the gentleman's club, whatever. But you're not hanging out with each other all day long like you are in college. And I think that spills over into your workout. So to me, that's the biggest difference in the off season and workouts. And in the NFL, I mean, just like college, they're starting to limit that stuff, right? The new CBA limits the amount of practice time, limits the amount of contact you can have in practice. That's happening at every level of football. And also that puts even more emphasis on guys to make sure individually that they come in shape and they're taking care of their business on their own. So I think in the NFL, it's all about you as an individual. At the college level, I think you got more support from your teammates and more support from the coaches and from the strength and conditioning staff about getting guys in shape and organizing those workouts.
Good insight for sure. CJ, a question for you from Rick. And Rick says, how does Fasusi compare to Banks and Brandon Baker?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Listen, I said it earlier. I think Kelvin Banks is in that conversation for the best offensive lineman that I've seen coming out of high school. He just had it all pieced together, whether it be the lower body, the upper body, the movement, the strength. He had it all. Right now, I think there's going to be a little bit of a growing curve for Brandon Baker when it comes to getting off the ball with his quickness. He has tremendous arm length. He has great strength. He came from a great program at Mater Dei. I think it's going to be a little bit of a flip for him and a guy like Michael Fasusi, where it's, hey, Michael Fasusi as an athlete is very explosive. He throws a shot put about 47 feet. That was last year even. So he's had, time to grow. I think Donald Hawkins trains with him, the former Longhorn, up in the DFW area. Posted a photo of him the other day on Twitter of him shirtless after a workout. It doesn't look like that kid weighs any more than 280 pounds, yet he's right around 310, and he carries that weight very well. He moves very well. Again, very explosive. So I think you're going to see a little bit more of those kind of comparisons with Brandon Baker and Michael Fasusi, but for opposite reasons, if that makes sense. The upper body, more advanced, more along the way for Fasusi, whereas the athleticism, flip that. The athleticism for Fasusi is going to be a little bit better, a little bit more advanced, but the upper body for a guy like Brandon Baker is going to be his kind of bread and butter when it comes to that arm length at 85 inches.
Ooh, yeah.
All right, Rod, we have a question for you now from AJJ Sports. He says, kind of a weird question, but who's the most overrated wide receiver that you had to cover?
That is a weird question, but it's a good one actually because it made me think. I know I don't want to disrespect folks, but I guess I'm going to disrespect somebody when I say I don't want to disrespect somebody, right? It's like saying I'm not a racist, but well, you about to say something racist. So I'm only going to throw out Rashawn Woods. Rashawn Woods was a first-round pick, if I'm not mistaken, out of Oklahoma State. and he was a really good receiver, all conference, really good receiver. He was slower. So for me, it wasn't like the guys that gave me issues. If I had to cover Xavier Worthy, that'd be the type of receiver that gives me problems. I think I can cover AD Mitchell actually. If I had my choice, I'd be like, no, I can cover AD Mitchell. The guy that would give me more problems would probably be X-Man. The guys who are really fast, but they can decelerate and accelerate really quick out of their breaks. And they're small. The smaller guys actually do give me problems, right? Sometimes it's hard to get your hands on those small guys, man. Especially when they're quick and fast in the line of scrimmage. Bigger guys, bigger target. I was good at the line of scrimmage. I was patient. I got my hands on guys. I rerouted guys. So you're a bigger wide receiver. It's all I want. I can get my hands on you, maul you a little bit, and I could get in phase a lot better with those type of receivers. It's hard to be in phase. Basically means you're in a good position to play the football. It's hard to get in a good position to play football when you're worried about whether you're going to get roasted out there and toasted because Xavier Worthy got 3-4 more gears that he can hit. Receivers that, and that's the thing about the AD Mitchell, why we question what AD Mitchell had top end speed, because we never saw him hit the gear. We knew Xavier Worthy could run because we've seen him hit 3-4 different gears out there. We didn't see that from AD Mitchell. Maybe we didn't need to see it, but we didn't see that from AD Mitchell. And I would say that Rashawn Woods was more like that, where he was a bigger wide receiver. I don't know what he ended up running at the combine, but it wasn't a blazing time. But he was drafted, I believe, drafted in the first round because he was considered a really, really good receiver. And I think he was. I just think matchup wise for me, it was easier to cover him. And I thought I did a damn good job covering Rashawn Woods throughout the years. But that's obviously, I could be saying that in my head, and y'all probably going to send me a clip of me getting dusted by Rashawn Woods too. So that also, that could be, it could be my mind playing tricks on me. But yeah, I mean, I remember receivers like, you remember Bethel Johnson out of A&M? Right, I think he ran like a 4.2 something at the combine on his pro day. Dude could just flat blaze. One of his great quotes was, and I never give props to an Aggie, but it was a funny quote. And he was like, I think he said, Jesus Christ couldn't cover me if he had cleats on. And I was like, damn, man, you gonna disrespect Jesus like that? You ain't. I was like, he said it before the Texas game. And I'm like, dude, you ain't disrespect me, disrespected the Lord and Savior. Like, what is wrong with you? That's not a diss toward me. Yeah, what are you doing? But he was a fast guy, and to me, those are the guys that gave me trouble. And Sark knows that's why he likes speed out there, right? Defenders like me, that's what we think about. We got a guy with speed. It's gonna make us less aggressive, right? It's gonna make us hesitant to jump on a route or break on a route because if you make the wrong decision, that guy is gone. And ain't no makeup speed when it comes to guys like that. So those are the guys that gave me trouble. So I'm not disrespecting my man Rashawn Woods, just saying it was a good matchup for me. Because I like to get my hands on guys, and all I needed was a big target to get my hands on.
All right, CJ, we're going to go back to a question for you, and then we'll do one more for both of you, and then get out of here. But and I guess Todd Lacey going to put you on the spot. Who's a likely upcoming Texas commitment in the next few weeks?
Get him.
Oh boy,
get him.
This will be fun. Listen, there's going to be a lot of visitors coming to campus over the next couple of weeks. March 22nd is going to be a big weekend. Get guys on campus 1 month from now. When you look at who's coming to campus on April 6th, that list is going to be very interesting. You got to see guys like Kelshawn Johnson, Khalid Clockett on the offensive side of the ball. John Mills coming in from out of state. I think Texas is in really good spots for, the three of those guys. They got some work to do with Khalid Clockett, but hey, Kelshawn Johnson, John Mills, those guys feel like Texas is right in that money spot for them. I think you're going to see a long ways, at least into the summer, for a guy like Michael Fasusi. Jordan Davison's actually locked in of unofficial visits to Ohio State and Alabama over the next month or so. So Texas needs to get him back on campus because we know that, hey, they're in the market for the modern day running back, and they'd like to get him on campus multiple times to secure a commitment from him. But I've got to imagine, maybe an offensive lineman. Offensive linemen like to go early. We'll see exactly which of those guys, a Tyler Thomas, some of those guys in that mix. I think we'll see pop by the end of spring football.
And then the last question for tonight, guys, we'll go back to Quinn Ewers.
Oh, here we go.
What do y'all think his weight is coming into the season?
Oh, that's
a
good.
Great question.
What was it at, CJ? Because he lost weight for this season, right? That's why he looked lighter. He felt lighter too because he was running a lot more. He was heavy. What did he come in this year? What was it?
So he started his career at 210, played last year at 198. So a pretty significant drop, in perspective there. I'd like to see him back around 210, but again, a completely different 210 than what he came in at, which I think we can all agree on needed some work, or at least some switch up in the diet and the off-season regiment. So, I'd like to see him right around 210. If he can get to 215, I think that's a stretch. Quinn's not a big guy. He's not a broad guy by any means, but I mean, Sarkisian tried to QB sneak with Quinn Ewers a few times, once against Houston, once against Alabama. That 198 pounds, I don't care who you are. You cannot be QB sneaking in the SEC. And, if you can get up to about 210, 212, 215, that would be big for Texas.
I'm with you. I want to see him a little heavier. I think quarterbacks in the NFL, I think they take a lot more of a beating than people realize. I think you need that armor. And sometimes that armor doesn't look great, right? Look at Patrick Mahomes. Y'all seen that armor? Y'all seen him take his shirt off? All right. It ain't all, nice, and it ain't all, swole up. It ain't cut necessarily. But it is armor for him. He's got, I think he's like 225, something like that. For him, that's armor, so that he can deal with the punishment of, getting hit, a little bit late, hitting the ground, just the wear and tear of being a quarterback over a 17-game season. So I'm with CJ. I want to see him heavier. Listen, I'm glad he can scramble now. That's fantastic. That's not what's going to get him drafted. All right. And he can still scramble at, like you said, 215, somewhere around there. And by the way, the 215 should be different than the 210 because it should be more muscle.
Absolutely. Right? Especially in the lower body.
Boom. Exactly. Right. I love what you said, the lower body. It should be more muscle, and it shouldn't be, as flabby. All right. I'm not saying he was flabby, but it should be a very, very, I think, stout 215 for him. And he still should be able to run a little bit if he needs to. But like we said, we don't need Quinn, being a dual threat quarterback. We don't need him rushing for 30, 40 yards a game. I just need him to pick up a couple of yards to keep the chains moving. That's all I need you to do. And he can do that at 215. And I love you, Quinn. I'm going to need you to stop. And we know you got some scones. We know you got some testicular fortitude. All right. We know you got them. Stop trying to run over linebackers. It's all good. We need you to slide in there, get out of bounds. It's okay. All right. We know you're a competitor. We got it on film now. So all the scouts can see, hey, it's on film. That guy ain't afraid to take on the linebacker. It's good. But you go be a franchise quarterback in the league, which we all think and project you will be. You can't make decisions like that. That's a bad decision for a franchise quarterback. You need to take care of yourself and protect yourself. That is also part of your job as a quarterback. So I want to see the scrambles. I want to see them a little bit thicker. I agree with CJ. Better decisions too when it comes to protecting yourself as a quarterback.
Yep. Hey, Blake, one last thing before we get out of here.
Go ahead.
Five-star wide receiver Jamie French out of Mandarin High School in Jacksonville, Florida, locked in a Texas official visit for June 21st through 23rd. That's a big one. Texas is working to get him on campus for an unofficial on April 6th as well. So he's the guy that told me he loves the way Texas uses his wide receivers. Sarkisian's offense wants to play in an offense that gets the ball to his receivers, develops them, blah, 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 blah. You understand it. Jamie French, high 4-star, borderline 5-star guy out of Mandarin, Florida, will be making 2 visits to Texas over the next 3 months. So big time get right there for Texas to get him on campus.
Nice.
Sure. Good news drop there to close the show out, CJ. And that is going to do it for tonight's Longhorn live stream. We got to give a special thanks to Joe Brown. Be sure to give him a call. He's your veteran mortgage professional. So I want to thank him for sponsoring tonight. And thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for the super chats and the great questions. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Ring the bell so you're notified anytime and every time we post a video right here. And then after this is over, head on over to ontexasfootball.com for all the latest recruiting information, team news, and a lot more. So for CJ Vogel and Rod Babers, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you in the morning for coffee and football.